Hey guys, so in this video I want us to create a navigation bar like the one you see on your screen. So the purpose of this video is not to create a fancy navigation bar, rather to give you the building blocks that you can use to create your own navigation bar. So one of the functionalities that this navigation bar has is this side like submenu that once you've clicked on, you can see these changes, and when I move away, you can see it closes the navigation bar. So these it closes the submenu. So these are the things that we all struggle with when we are starting out with creating navigation bars. And another thing, this is responsive, so if you view it on mobile screens, you should see the main navigation bar for large screens is hidden, but also if you click this hamburger menu, you can see that it opens. Now if you click away, this closes as well. So this is exciting, and the good thing is, in this video I want to show you a library that you can use to make sure that this happens in the simplest way possible. So this library is called Alpine.js. So you can see it says it's lightweight. It's a lightweight JavaScript framework. It's lightweight yet powerful. So in this video we are going to use things like xdata to declare our variables inside our container. We're going to use xshow to show maybe our menus or certain things when depending on the state of the variable. So this is really exciting. Let's get started. Okay, so here I am in my VS Code, and let's get started. So the first thing that we want to do is to go ahead and get this powerful library. And what I'll do is I'll just come here and copy this script to be used in our code. So let's do that. After I've done that, then we can get started. So to get started, what I'll do is I'll start with my header tags, and then inside these header tags I'll just add the following classes. So if you see these classes, all I'm doing is I'm making this header relative, and then I come here to make this full width. I can remove this if I want, and let's remove relative for now. And then I am making it, I'm giving it a z index of 30 so that it's above at least everything else. And then I've given it a border bottom of slate 300 with an opacity of 0.6. After that, I am giving it a BG of transparent so that it can take the background of the body in this case. And then after that, I'll give it a shadow SM, which is just a slight shadow. Okay, so once I've done this, what I want to do next is to declare our variables with our Alpine.js variables. So to do that, we use this xdata, and then inside this we can have an object that declares our variables and their initial state. So in this case, I want to have a variable called mobile menu open, and I'll set its default to false. Okay, so these are the variables that we're gonna have in this container. So everywhere, at any place in this container, this variable will work. outside this header container, this variable is not going to work. So you have to keep that in mind. So I'll go below here and create a nav tag. And then for my nav tag, I'll add the following classes. So I'm giving this nav tag a max width of 7XL, which is 1280 pixels. And then I'm centering it with MX Auto, and I'm making it a flex box. And then inside, I want the items to center align. And then I'll give it a PY of negative of 3, which is 12 pixels top and bottom. Inside this nav, I'll create another div. And for this div, I'll give it the following classes. So I'm giving it a flex class, and then I also want to have this width as full. I will give it an item center so that it centers everything vertically, and then a justify between. This will leave space between the items inside. So let's go ahead and see what items we want to have inside. So the first item we want to have is this logo, and then this menu section. So we want to have space in between here. So let's go ahead into our code and configure that as well. So for the logo, what we want is to come here and say div, and I will add an image that I've already prepared. So I have this image inside here. So img, so these are the images that I have. This is one of them. And then I will come here and give this a class of flex, and then I will also give it a class of shrink 0 so that our items doesn't shrink within the specified height. And then after that, I will also give it another item center so that this is centered along the y-axis. And then once I've done that, what I want to do is to create another image. So the other image that I'm going to create, this one is for this will be for my mobile screens, and then I'll create another one for, okay, so let's first of all give this an anchor tag and put this inside it, because what we want is once this is clicked, then someone should go to the home page. That's the default configuration or the standard. And then I will give this the following classes. So I'll give it a class of hidden for small screens, and then I'll give it a height of h12, which is for the 8 pixels. After that, I'll give it an LG of block so that it doesn't show on mobile screens, but it shows on large screens. And then this is a logo for my large screens, because I want to have another image for, let's say, our mobile version. I would do the same. I would do the same thing, but for the mobile version. So this one, the only difference is that now this is hidden on large screens while it's visible on small screens. The reason why you do this sometimes is because maybe you want to use, let's say, different logos for your mobile versus your let's say your laptops. So you can configure it this particular way. After we've done this, let's just close this for a little bit and come here and add our navigation section. So I'll start with the navigation for large screens, and then what I'll do is I'll add a div here. Inside this div, I'll add the following classes. So for these classes, what we're doing is I'm giving it a margin left of 24 pixels, and then I'm hiding it on small screens, and then I want to center the child element, and then I'll justify between, so it creates even a space within or between these elements. And then for the text, I want to give it a text XL, which is 20 pixels. And then for the medium screen sizes, I want this to be flex. And then I'll give it a space of this spacing. This should only apply on medium screens. And this space X, just make sure that you're giving an equal space within the child elements, so it's very important. And then for medium screen sizes, I'll give it a text of base, which is 16 pixels. And then for large screens, I want to increase the spacing so that we have enough spacing for larger screens. Okay, so that's it for the main division. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is just to add now the menu items. So for our first menu item, I want to have an about us section, and then let's give this the styling. For the styling, I will give it the following classes. Okay, I'll give it a text of base, so which is 16 pixels, and then white space no lap. This will just make sure that if I have, let's say, two words, they're not lapping, so one word doesn't go on another line. So white space no lap does that. And then I'm giving it a padding X of 4 pixels, and then a font weight of 500. For the color, I'm giving it a text slate 900, and then I'm giving it a transition on hover. So I'm giving it an ease in, ease out effect with the duration of 300. And then when we hover upon it, I also want the text to change to LED 500. So that's it for this section. Let's go ahead and check what we have now. The image is not showing at the moment, but we'll configure that at a later stage. So let's go back into the code, and what I'll do, I will just duplicate this, and so that we have two menus. And then for this, I'll just give it services. Let's see. So we have these services appearing here. Now what I want to do is now come and create this. So let's see how we can do that. And then for this pages section, what I'll do is come into the code, and then under these elements, child elements, what I want to do is to come and create a div, and inside that div, let's first of all give it the required classes. So I'll just make this relative for now, and then what we want to do is go back to our Alpine variables. So I will create another Alpine variables for this specific section, and then I'll call the variable open, and by default I'll make it false. So this is a Boolean variable and it's false. And then I'll go inside here and create a button, and then I'll give the following classes to our button. So if you're asking which button are we creating, this is the button that we are creating, and we want it to have this icon. So let's go back and see. So what we've done here is I am giving it a text. I'll give it a text base, and then we'll give it this a class of group so that we can apply this group inside this button. I will show you that soon. And then we've given it a flex item center, white space no wrap. We've talked about that. A pxo3, font medium, text straight, and then I've also given it a transition. We've already talked about transitions, so I will not, but I've given it a transition of ease in and ease out. And then on hover, we want the text to change to LED 500. So inside this button, what I want to do is to create a span. And then for the span, I want to give it this Alpine.js attribute called class. So what this is called xbind. So let's go back to the documentation and see. It says it dynamically set the HTML attributes on an element. So for example, for this example here, you can see we have xbind, and then it says if open is not set to true, then apply this hidden class. Otherwise, do not apply anything. So basically, it adds this hidden class whenever this is open is set to false. So that's xbind. I would highly encourage you to come and visit this documentation just to get more knowledge about it. So what I want to do is to use this Alpine functionality to set specific classes whenever this variable open is set to true. So what I'll do is I'll come here and paste this. So you can see what I want to do is to set the text to brown. Let's say I want to set the text to LED 700 whenever open is set to true. So this should only happen when open is set to true. And then inside this, I want to add an inside the span, I want to add the following text pages, and then on the side I want to add an SVG. So this is the it's called Calet. I don't know if it's Calet, but yeah, that's the SVG that you looking at here, this SVG. So I have this SVG file, and then what I want to show you is we have set a margin left of -2. I've given it a height of 5, a width of 5, which is 20 pixels. And then what I've given this class transform, and you see why this is important. And then I've given it a text slate of 900. I've given it a duration for the transform. And then on group hover, I want it to change to text LED 500. So you can see what I said last time is we added this group feature here. So we are using it inside here. This is what will happen. Whenever we hover upon this whole button, then this effect will apply to this element. So you can check out more on group with Tailwind CSS. It's a cool functionality. And then we are adding again these classes with Alpine.js. So we are saying if open is set to true, we should rotate to 180 degrees and then add this text LED 500. So you can see that's the reason we added transform on the initial class here. So that's that. And then after we've done this, let's go ahead and save this and just see what's happening. So if I go here, refresh this, now you can see that we have these pages with this colored icon. And then the next thing that I want to do is to create a drop down page for this section. So let's do that. So inside my code, just below this button thing, I want to create a div, which is a section for the drop down. So for the drop down, what I want is to give it the following classes. So you can see we've given it an absolute class, and for this to work, we need to make sure that the parent has a class called relative, and the parent, this is the parent, and you can see it has the class of relative. So it has to be relative to this section. And then we've given it a height of 0 and then a z index of 10. We have also given it a margin top of 3, which is 12 pixels. And then we've given it a width of 52, so to give it a specific width. And then we've inside elements, we want to give them a space of y1 so that we have equal spacing between the child elements. This is a vertical spacing. And then I'll make this rounded, and then I'll give it a background of white. I'll give it a drop shadow, and then I'll add this class filter. I don't even know if I need this, so I'll remove this, and then that's it. And then I'll go again, and what I want is to go ahead and add the menu icons. So I'll just paste this because we've gone through adding a menu icon, and this is what I'm doing. I'm giving a class of block and then a rounded of LG, a padding. This is just the usual styling, so I won't bother talking about this. And then I'll add the second menu item. And then let's go to the most important thing. On this div, which opens this section, what I want to do is to again use Alpine.js so that when someone comes to the site and then they click it and then they click away, it disappears. But first of all, when they click it, it appears. So let's configure that. So what I'll do is I'll give it a class of, or an attribute of x show dot transition. So this gives it a transition effect when it's appearing or disappearing. So based on the variable open that we set here. And then another thing that I want to do is to set this variable to false when someone clicks away of this section. So to do that, Alpine.js has this cool functionality that says at click dot away equals open should be set to false, and that's it. So let's check this out. If I come here and then, okay, it's here. Okay, so what I've observed is that our Alpine.js script is not loading. So you can see it says it's not found. The reason why is the link that I've been given here is not working. So what you can do is just go on get started and then copy this script, and then we come here again and replace this. Okay, So once you've done that, let's try this again and see what happens. Okay, so what issue do we have now? It's not working. It's not working. Let's go into our code and see where we need to improve. What we need to do is to on-click for this button to set the open to true. That's something we haven't done yet. So let's go ahead and do that. So for the button, on-click, at click, I'll set the open to true. And then if I go back to the code or to the page here, you can see now it appears and it crosses, it appears, it crosses. So this is what we wanted to do for the sub menu here, and then it has some simple styling. So but now when we change this to mobile screen, you can see it just hides. It just hides. What we want is to have the hamburger menu. Once you have the hamburger menu, we can be able to open another menu for the mobile screen. So let's do that. So I'll come in my code and then I'll close this, and then the navigation for large screens. Now what I want to do is still more inside here where I have this. I want to add a button. I want to add a hamburger menu button. So for that, what I'll do is I'll come below this navigation for large screens and then add the hamburger menu button. And then down here, I'll add another button tag. For this button, I'll give it the following classes. Okay, so let's see what we have. For medium screen sizes, I want this to be hidden, and I've also given it this class group, which we've already talked about. I've given it a margin left of 2, a flex, a height of 8, a width of 8, items center, justify center. I've given it a border, and then the border slate 100. I've given it a background of white, transition colors, so when I hover upon it, the border should turn to transparent, and then when I hover, the background should tend to, let's remove this, and then when I focus on it, the border should be transparent as well, and then when I focus on it, the background should be accent. Let's remove that. Let's remove the dark variation because we're not enabling this for dark variation, and then let's remove all this. Okay, so this is what we now have. Inside this, I want to add an SVG. So I'll just copy an SVG and add it here. This is a hamburger menu SVG icon, and let's just go through the classes. I've given it an h-foo, so it takes the whole width and height, and then I've given it a stroke of slate 700, a fill of slate 700, transition colors, and then on group hover we are now changing the colors to fill white, so there's a transition. And then on group focus, we want to have a fill of white. Now you can see group focus is here just because we have this group on the parent button. So whenever someone focuses on this button, this will happen. The focus will change to fill white. So once we've done that, let's see. We refresh, inspect, you can see now we have this hamburger icon. Okay, as simple as all that. Now let's go and give it some action. So I will close this, but there's one thing I need to do. I'll come below the button, and here we'll add another navigation. Before we do that, let's give this button its functionality before we forget. So when I click this button, what I want to happen is to toggle between true or false. So mobile menu will be equal to not mobile menu. So if it's true, it will result into false. If it's false, it will result into true. So that's the toggle effect that is gonna happen here. And then once I've done that, I will go at the bottom here and create a navigation for mobile screens. So let's do this. And then for this, what I want to do is to first of all inside here add a div, and for that div give it the following classes, simple classes. Okay, and then inside these classes I'll just give it the anchor tags or the menu items. So you can see, let's just remove the links here for now. And then I've given this a block rounded LG PY, like just the usual styling of the anchor tags. I will not dwell much on this, so let's just go ahead. These are for demonstration purposes. Okay, so now we want to give this now the functionality that makes it open on mobile screens and when the hamburger icon is clicked on. So first thing that I want to do is to set the xShow attribute, and then I want to add a transition effect. So I'll say when this is true, mobile menu open is true, then this should open, otherwise it should tend to false. And then I'll also add the click away version. So if someone clicks away or outside this section, then we set it to false. So let's see how that works. If I refresh, inspect, and then click this, you see that there is a slight mistake that we've done. To fix that, what I need to do is just take this whole thing together, and this is the navigation for the large screens, but let me add it here. So you can see here it will be side by side with this, and then this should work. So if I click it, you can see it just opens up from there. And yeah, this is how you, okay, so if I click away, if I click it, it opens up, and if I click away or click this again, it closes. So this is how you create your navigation bars. Anything else is just adding up or just some icing on the cake. But these are the building blocks of how you can create any navigation bar that you want. Everything else is about design and how you want it to look at the end of the day. So with that said, this is all I had for this video, and please subscribe to my channel and then get notified whenever we upload new content like this. Thank you very much. Until next time, have a great day.